Thank you, Eric. We're going to do a verbal roll call. Elborn.
Cabrera here.
Good here.
Gamelki here.
Harry here.
Jones here.
Miharis here.
All right. Martin's not here yet.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right. First of all, want to say welcome back to Mr. Good, Mr. Cabrera, and Mr. Gamelki. They were appointed by City Council for another 3 years term. So glad to see all three of you back. We'll go to, are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to the agenda? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. Consent agenda. I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of June 4th.
Mr. Chairman, I think we need a motion to approve, do we not?
Approve what?
The minutes?
That's what I just did.
Oh, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of June 4th, 2024.
Bourne will move to approve the minutes as presented.
Okay, do we have a second?
Cabrera seconds.
We have a second by Mr. Cabrera. Any comments, additions? Michaela has committed to doing minutes for the next year. And so she completes the minutes actually very quickly. She gets them to Mr. Bourne, who's currently the secretary. He reviews them and it passes it on for further review, and then we close. So hearing no additions or corrections or deletions to the minutes, we will do a roll call vote.
Bourne, yes.
Cabrera, yes.
Good, yes.
Gamelki, yes.
Perry, yes.
Jones, yes.
Miharis, yes.
Okay. There is no unfinished business. So in July every year, we do election of officers for the coming year. And I will start, and typically we vote on chair, and then the chair then conducts the rest of the committee. So I am going to make a motion to appoint John Gamelki chair of the DDA. Do we have a second?
Cabrera seconds.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Now we can have discussion. So do you have any aversion, Mr. Gamelki?
No, I'd be pretty nervous. I'll get used to it though. I'd be happy to do it.
Well, any good thing you should be nervous about doing.
Yeah.
So any other comments, concerns? Okay, we will do a roll call vote.
Bourne, yes.
Cabrera, yes.
Good, yes.
Do I vote?
Yeah.
Gamelki, yes.
Perry, yes.
Jones, yes.
Miharis, yes.
Weatherford, yes.
All right. It's your turn to sit here.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have to do musical chairs a little bit. So I think Eric, you stay there because you're about to elect. I'll move to your seat until you finish.
So then we still have other officers to elect, correct? So how about vice chair? Is anybody up for it? I would like to elect Eric as vice chair.
That's a motion.
That's a motion. Do I have any second?
I'll second.
So do we take a vote by
Ask for any comment.
any comments? Let's take a vote.
Bourne, yes.
Cabrera, yes.
Good, yes.
Perry, yes.
Gamelki, yes.
Jones, yes.
Miharis, yes.
Weatherford, yes.
Okay.
Nice.
Next, we need somebody to step up to be secretary. Al, would you continue doing that?
Yes, I would entertain it with Michaela's help,
Okay,
most assuredly.
okay. So do we make a motion? So then Al accepts, so do we take a vote on that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we need a motion a second. Sorry.
For public comment?
No,
Comment?
not public comment.
I'll motion to keep Al as secretary.
Thank you.
Perry seconds.
Let's take a vote.
Bourne, yes.
Perry, yes.
Good, yes. Cabrera, yes.
Gamelke, yes.
Jones, yes.
Miharis, yes.
Weatherford, yes.
Now we have treasurer.
I thought I heard Mr. Good volunteer.
And Tony, you need to turn your hearing.
Tony, I was wondering if you might step up to be treasurer for at least this cycle.
I would be happy to in my last year.
Thank you. Any comments?
Miharis motions for Mr. Perry to be treasurer.
Second.
Let's take a vote.
Bourne, yes.
Perry, yes.
Good, yes.
Cabrera, yes.
Gamelke, yes.
Jones, yes.
Miharis, yes.
Weatherford, yes.
Oh, that's all done. Thank you, guys. All right, so next is a Tava update.
Good morning, everybody. Chairman Gamelke. Has a nice ring to it, doesn't it? Like that. Okay, so top update. We have made some really good progress this last month. You've seen how the site is beginning to get cleared and starting to take shape a bit. We've had great meetings with city staff to move things forward. The hot potato has been, this past month, has been the SDA, the Subdivision Development Agreement. And we've had good meetings about that. Our attorneys are involved, Nina and our attorney, and we are sorting through that, and we should have that finalized within the next week to 10 days. So we're aiming for a vote on the SDA to be August 1st. And that goes before City Council. So we hope to have that done by then. We also got some good news about getting our grading permit, where we can do some initial light site work. And we hope we will have that permit and can proceed with that in the next week to 10 days. That's what we're hoping for on that. So we steady on. We're making good progress, and thank you to the staff for working so hard on it. Appreciate it. Any questions?
Any questions?
Just a clarification, when we're referencing the grading plan,
Yep.
just for staff's comfort, it is grading only. No,
Yeah.
no site work beyond, no hardscape, no foundations, nothing with the building.
Hey, Mark,
Yes.
have you guys, made any headway on the egress, ingress, lane? Is that?
Great question. Great question. CDOT. That is one thing that is still hanging out there is we proposed a way to do the decel lane that's right turn into Center Street. And we also have to elongate the stacking for the left turn into Center Street. And we submitted that, gosh, probably a month ago, and we still don't have comments back. So we're waiting on that. We are reminding them that we are looking for their comments, but they haven't given us any response yet. I think there's one engineer at CDOT that needs to review it. So it's gone through a few levels. Now there's one more to go, but we just are waiting on that one.
Will that hold you up from starting progress?
We certainly need to have it resolved before we can get to the final plat for sure.
Are you
And-
guys,
And,
sorry,
and city staffs, we're all kind of trying to pull on CDOT to give us some kind of response, comments.
are you guys still on track with your timeline?
For groundbreaking, like a real groundbreaking, probably August, in the month of August. It might slide to September. We just don't know yet. Yep. Any other questions? Okay,
Thank you.
great. Thanks for letting me report.
Next up is the Bergstrom Park sign. Arden, do you have something on that?
Yeah, I included in the packet on page 6 is a sign that was contemplated or proposed. You'll notice the date on this is 10 years ago. This is back shortly after the hardware store had opened, and there was still at that time intention to develop the rest of Woodland Station. And since now we're back to that notion, I just thought I'd bring this up so people could see what was being thought about back then. We had talked about the temporary hardware store sign that that same windstorm that took down Jerry's tree took that sign down, and I see the city clean that up. So it seems timely to me to maybe revisit this as a board and have some discussion about what we can be involved in Woodland Station as far as signage, and perhaps even looking at Bergstrom Park. You know, I've observed just how big of a transition Memorial Park was for the town. And I think there's the same opportunity at Bergstrom, especially since everyone sees it when they come through town. So I guess what I'm hoping to do here today is suggest that we have a work session just to talk about what we could do down there as far as real improvements and how we could be instrumental in that. So maybe we have an on-site work session or meet somewhere else. I'm happy to host it, but something in the daytime we could look around down there.
Are you contemplating a public work session?
I think anything that would include everybody would have to be public.
So do we recall, I don't remember exactly the conditions of putting that sign on Bergstrom Park city owned. Do we have an agreement with the city to put a sign there? Or?
Well, I think anything we would do over there would have to be in concert with the city staff. So I don't know what kind of agreement this is. Like I said, this is 10 years ago, but that temporary sign sat there for 10 years.
If I would also think that Tauber would have some input on a sign.
Yeah, I would
too.
think so too. You
Most
see,
definitely.
they've listed everybody that was supposed to be involved in this, but it does seem to me the kind of thing that this board should be able to do something with.
It is, what you're thinking about is more aligned with our ability as a DDA to have a project to help with funding in cooperation with the city, provide funding from this body to the city for Bergstrom Park. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, essentially.
Well, I'm certainly open to a work session. I don't think it hurts to talk. Anything to help improve the downtown and create better visibility and identify what we're trying to accomplish down there would be positive. Great.
Okay, do we need to have a motion to do something like that, or we just schedule something and the public post it?
Let's schedule something. How would we do that? How do we go about that?
I think my consensus, and I think the only thing we have to be conscious of is we're going to want to post it, the 24 hours notice or more, hopefully, for the public's benefit.
So we do want it to be here then, so that the public can be here.
It's
I guess that's my thought. Are we imagining and, walking around on site, or are we gonna look at, I can produce plans of it because I have that surveyed to bring into a meeting if we want to have a meeting here in-house.
Yeah, it feels like here it's easier for the public. We have access to the recordings. Maybe we all commit to going over there and walking it, just to see the state of it. Especially the restrooms, see our wonderful dividers in the stalls. That's an interesting thing, but probably reality. I've been an advocate for making that a non-rest area, state rest area, like the rest of the state has done, because it doesn't necessarily benefit the downtown to have overnight guests, even though it's a nice thing. I don't think it helps our downtown, so.
And can I just make a comment on that? When you go to Estes Park, it's wonderful because they'll have restrooms this way, and they actually have public restrooms. The cultural center used to be open, but they're closed more than they're not. And so we need public restrooms in this town. So if that's it's necessary to keep it open, in my opinion.
Well,
Doesn't the Memorial Park have public restrooms?
Does, yeah, and it might.
And they're cleaner and nicer.
Yeah, but it's on the downtown main strip. You need something, people won't know that there's bathrooms over there.
It might be interesting to get some input from Chief Deisler as well on this, because I know he's got some comment on the restroom, on that restroom.
At this point in time, as I recall back historically, there was a reversionary clause in the deeding of that land. Is that still apply to the Bergstroms? Might be something on the use of it that we might have to be aware of.
yeah, so I have done some homework last year with Mr. Prout, who is the #1 Mr. Bergstrom advocate in our community. His position, because we brought him over when we were contemplating what we were doing prior to the sale of Woodland Station. And he indicated that Mr. Bergstrom, that his position would be, if it's what's best for the community, he would be open to it.
Good,
So,
good.
and I think with family not being around anymore, Mr. Prout is, I think most people know him, is very, very passionate about that, and would be the best source. So I think inviting him to that work session would be a positive thing to do as well.
So do we want to try to do it on another Tuesday morning? Would that work for everybody? And then we'd have to check with the city to make sure that this space is available as well. Do we want to do it sooner than later? Like maybe say next Tuesday? Aaron, do you know if that's even open?
We'll have to check, sorry.
Or Tony, do you have an version to that?
Well, I'm not available next Tuesday, but that doesn't matter.
No, when would you, can somebody think of a day? Anybody got any ideas?
One thing to consider is to have it with our normal meeting cycle, because our agendas are, this would be a main project to take on if we decide we were interested. So maybe the 1st of August would be okay, and just do it at our normal meeting cycle so we stay on track.
Is that okay with
just
you?
plan on a little bit more time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Schedule it, yeah.
Is that okay with you?
I do think that's good. And that gives us time to identify some of the stakeholders and gather information and really be.
So do we want to do a walk around before then possibly, or just?
Well, I think we should all do it separately so we
Yeah.
don't trigger any weird meeting
Okay.
stuff.
So between now and then on your own time.
Is everybody okay with that? Just to go over there and get a lay of it, look at it and get some thoughts about it?
I know it pretty well.
You already know it pretty well, yeah.
And also,
And
Mr. Weaver, if I can lean on you for a second, are you guys putting in open public restrooms that will be privately maintained?
That is a concept.
Okay, so I think that's something that we all need to keep in the back of our mind too, when we're looking at what we have versus what the Tava Group can provide. Because I think the level of service be well beyond what's out there now. So just something to keep in the back of our mind.
And also, I think the layout of that, even part of that parking lot, when we looked originally at the plans from Tava, that's changing too. So they're taking some of that space and some of that parking, if I remember right, that's gonna change the layout. And then the decel lane's gonna change stuff too, so it's, yeah. There's just a lot going on right there.
Yeah, so Mr. Chair, I think you can just put it on as an agenda item as a work session.
Okay.
Sure.
Thank you.
For clarification, that will be August 6th.
Mhm.
Is the next DDA meeting.
And is it okay if I invite Mr. Poot? Because I think he
Yes,
would be
please.
tremendous asset for that discussion.
Also, possibly the Historical Preservation Committee. Might be a good idea to have them as well as staff. We'll make sure we have several staff present here.
Are those bathrooms that old that they register for the?
I think it's the back building.
No comment.
Okay.
I think that's a great. Invite all the stakeholders that we can dream of.
All right, I have a few tasks to do. All right, thank you, Arden.
Real quick, would it help if I just send out a PDF to everybody so they can kind of look at it, plan and view?
You mean of what Tava has in mind?
Well, of the park, and
What's
would
there?
include what Tava's got.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
the
that-
existing survey and the site.
Sure, that'd be great. All right, are we done with that? No more comments? All right, so let's move on to public comment regarding new business. Is there anybody here? I have none. Reports. Tony, would you do the board chair report today's? Since I'm not really up on.
I think the only thing of significance is that welcome back to yourself, Mr. Cabrera and Mr. Good. I think this has been I would describe it as an adult board trying to do the best for our community. And so it's nice to see the council reappoint you so that we can hopefully continue to do good work.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Thanks.
And I would be happy to jump right in and do the treasurer's report if you like.
Thank you.
Okay. Page 7. You'll see expenses for our attorney. And I did get confirmation that they did receive it. We had a disconnect with they had changed offices and addresses. So we're now all caught up and everything's cleaned up, which is a good thing. And we also had if we look, and as always, they also provide their W-9 with the new address, and they always provide the supporting invoices. So that's in the packet. On page 11, we did get a TIF reimbursement request from Purple Mountain Hospitality 2, aka Microtel Hotel. And that has been processed. A reminder to the board, because we only do 3 or 4 of these a year, is that and the supporting documentation starts on page 12. The applicant or the party requests the TIF reimbursement after they've paid their taxes for the year. We do several things. We confirm payment of the taxes, and then we plug the current numbers into the spreadsheet, which is on page 12. And this is just the top level page for Purple Mountain Hospitality. You'll see that for 2024, the spreadsheet is showing a 50% reimbursement. I personally still have some questions on the timing of some of this that we may want to have our attorney take a look at, but the real factor is the actual value for the year. You'll see that it jumped quite a bit from 2023 from the Teller County Assessor's Office. The base value stays the same, so it's established at the beginning of the TIF deal. And so the AV increment is the difference between those two numbers. And then the mill levy, that's the number for this last year that the county provides. And so that's the multiplier. So the tax increment that if they were getting 100% reimbursed, or that's actually how much they paid, $92,383.08, but they're reimbursed 50%. So they're going to get a check for $46,191.54. So we have another one that's coming is I'm expecting one from AJ's Pizza this year. They should be submitting one. And we still have the Trail Ridge Apartments entity. They change entities sometimes without their pretty large concerns. So we're still expecting theirs, but we've already processed Taylor Mountain Enterprises, and I think that's all we've done so far this year.
So Tony, am I right in reading this that next year would be their last year for a TIF reimbursement? Is that what that shows?
That's it. So we inherited these spreadsheets, and that's what I was saying is that on this particular one, looking at it, doesn't typically these deals are 10-year deals. So I think it's going to go to 2028, but part of my job will be to just confirm that.
Okay.
And we'll probably have to work with the attorney on it to make sure, because we've standardized with AJ's, we standardized the new TIF agreement, which is much more comprehensive than before. All the other previous TIF agreements were all variants of each other, and you have to really parse through to make sure you're interpreting them properly. So we just want to make sure that we're reading it right. But we'll report back to you once we do that analysis.
And the other thing, I mean, it's a little bit on this. We had talked about maybe having the DDA end, and was it 2032? Is that when it's scheduled to end? If we were going to do that, then we would have to take that into consideration with new TIF deals for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And yeah, just remember, the city council makes that decision.
Yes.
But I think it's appropriate for this board, if we want to make a recommendation to council as to what we think.
I think it needs to be in discussion because I've heard both sides of it. So I don't know how to, I guess, I don't know what to think on that yet. Do you know if council is leaning one way or the other? Do you know? Okay. It is something that we need to discuss though, because future TIF deals would definitely be shortened. We won't have the 10-year cycle for sure. My math, I think we'd have 8 years, so we'd have to look at that. Is that it, Tony?
Yeah, with Mr. Weatherford bringing up the possibility of a Bergstrom project and the DDA participating in that, as treasurer, I'll dig in and do some analysis with our payments to Vectra and verify the status of that. Right now, we're on track to have that paid off, obviously, before 2032. But I think if we're contemplating any future TIF deals, not only with the potential shortened time frame, but also any project that could be significant, I think it's probably time to do a kind of a countdown analysis of where everything's at and what we anticipate and project that out. So I'll work on that.
Okay, thank you. Board members' reports.
Bourne has nothing additional.
Harry has nothing additional.
Good, neither.
Cabrera has nothing.
Is this where I have a few ideas that I'd like to possibly bring up? On Park Street, right when you get off of Highway 24, when people are parking on both sides, it effectively becomes a one-way street. Two vehicles cannot get through there at the same time. So I had an idea of possibly putting on the restaurant side where Judges used to be, right there, there's 2 spots that people park at. And when they park there, and then Righteous Ground has 2 spots which are offset just a little bit off the street, but not all the way off the street. Like vehicles are still partly in the way, even though there's dedicated parking spots. I'd like to see the right side be either no parking for those 2 spots. They would still have the parking lot that they have there. And then, or a one-way street. Because effectively, I've seen cars stack up there. When cars pull in there, they stack up on Highway 24 because people are coming down and they're not stopping to let them in, even though etiquette says when you're going downhill, you're supposed to stop and let the people going up. People don't really realize that. So it's creating a bottleneck right there on Highway 24. And then the other thing is I'd like to see more signs that show that we have free parking, because we have plenty of free parking in town, but people don't know it because there's no signs anywhere. And even the parking behind here was built by the state, and this is free parking as well behind this building. But you would never note it because there's no signs that really point people to the parking. And I think it's important to try to get people out of their cars and get people to stop. And if they have a place to park, I think it would do that, and I think it would help businesses. So those are just a couple ideas. I don't know if anybody, I don't know what people think about that, but I've already talked to Aaron a little bit, and he's reached out to the city staff. They haven't gotten back to him yet. But does anybody have any comments on that?
I could say, just as a business owner, I agree with you 100% on Park Street. Park Street is, it's challenging.
Yeah, you're right there.
Yeah.
You would see it.
And there's public parking right in front of, well, on Park Street where you can just pull in, head in or back in. And it gets really interesting there. It's kind of fun to watch or not.
But you know what I'm talking about
yeah.
Where they park on
that side. Yeah. Yeah.
And I took a picture of it and showed it to Aaron, and only my truck could sweep. I mean, I got through. Obviously, I can get through, but there's only a couple of feet on each side.
Yeah.
When people double park there.
Yeah, one of the things I've been thinking about and haven't had time to turn on my techie brain, and maybe someone techie in here can, as I've been thinking about, you know, with geofencing capabilities in today's world from a marketing perspective. Can we create, is there a modality where someone driving up the pass, they'll be notified, pointing them to where parking is in town? I suspect there's some way to leverage technology for something like that. We know that they do it with, you know, they start coming up the pass, and some restaurants have been savvy enough to start saying, hey, are you hungry? You know, turn here, kind of a deal. So we might be able to do that with parking. It's something to maybe explore.
Have you been down to Manitou lately with all their parking lots, and they've got the signage, available spacing and all? Went down there yesterday and there were zero at all the parking spots.
And they're making millions of dollars a year.
Yeah, they actually have 1,000 spots that they oversee.
Yeah.
And their technology is when somebody comes in and rents that spot, that sign automatically drops.
Yep.
And as they have a set budget that they want to make a day, so they have a goal number in mind given the season because of traffic. And then actually, as the spots fill up, price increases. So it's a supply and demand technology that's automatic. It's brilliant. I have done a lot of research on parking because of our issues here. And Buena Vista's going to it, Estes Park is going to go to something like that. The technology is unbelievable. The amount of revenue that is brought in those parking lots just down in Manitou alone is mind-blowing.
Well, the big thing that comes to my mind is they've got no parking spots, which means there's a lot of business going on.
There's
and you kind of, you know, you're a little bit jealous.
Yeah. Well, and there's some things I think that we can, Mr. Weaver. I think there's some things that, you know, we as, you know, the board and working with city council can do to accomplish that. You know, a simple welcome sign, you know, going over 24, welcome to Woodland Park, you know, something to really set us aside, up our, you know, tourism games. You know, you talked about the U Cultural Center, you know, being open or closed more than it's open. Our tour is supposed to go and get the information. The office is in there. And we're really not utilizing it. We're not making it available. You know, now we really need to bring up more industries like the gentleman at Tava are doing. You know, that group, we need to bring that up and really give them a reason to come and see us. You know, so I think there's a lot that we can really do. But you're right, Manatee does a great job with that and parking.
Just so we're clear, I'm not proposing that we do paid parking.
No,
I'm just saying that they're
No, I get it.
really.
I get, and I will tell you that as a local West Sider, Manitou is not a place I go to anymore since they did that. Because I'm not paying park.
Sure.
Just, and we used to go there and we would spend money there and walk around there, but I'm not gonna do that.
yeah, John, I would never imply that. So just for the record, I
just-
wasn't doing that.
Go ahead, Mark.
I think Aaron's disappointed here. He's like, what?
Yes, sir.
I'm just enjoying the conversation that y'all are having right here. If I may, just a encouragement to this board. I think the DDA board could be a very positive, neutral proponent for long-term thinking about Woodland Park. I think our little town over the next several years is going to be, instead of a pass-through town, it's going to become a destination. That means a lot of people. And it would be great if the DDA could, they're looking at that district boundary and they see things coming that they can advocate for or suggest or even take the lead on. And Jerry, you mentioned Estes Park. I see what's going on up there too. John, your concerns about parking on Park Street and that bottleneck. There are things, 30,000 foot view to think about for Woodland Park. And I think the DDA could be the body that moves suggestions and ideas forward for the town. That's it.
Thank you. And also I'd like to know, is it like the parking signs? Is that something that we as a DDA can help fund? I mean, or would we be open to something like that so that it would, the onus wouldn't be all on the city, that we could actually pitch in and help with that? If we can get permission to put signs and come up with something that would work, is that something that we could consider as a board?
Yeah, so part of our charter does allow for those kind of efforts, beautification efforts. You know, we talked previously about potential micro grants for the businesses in the district. So it's absolutely in the charter. So it's up to this board to contemplate it and make sure we can pay for it.
Okay.
You know, John, I think we need to look a little closer at the, you know, the generalization that there's no signs and all. I know there are some.
There are a few, but they're pretty hard to see.
Yeah, and so it'd be an improvement, enhancement of
Yeah.
that. I understand, but I think they have tried in the past. I just don't know how successful. I do know that when that highway is packed, that people are kind of ticked off that they're sitting in the middle of that traffic. So they want to get to their destination as quick as they can. And even though there's a lot of people coming through our town, they don't stop.
Correct.
Because it's not a very convenient thing to do. So that reliever route really is something we should all be hoping for.
Yeah, and I seem to recall that former Main Street group got a grant to do a wayfinding study, but as with all studies, did they actually implement anything? Did they actually have money to implement anything?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think some things went into effect. I don't know how. I don't feel like the group was. I don't think everything went in, but I do.
So maybe but it may be a resource we can look
Sure.
at as a starting point if we want.
Yeah, absolutely. The study was done.
Yeah.
And Jerry, like I've had people pull in when I've been outside cleaning around our buildings and ask me if they can park in my parking lot, our parking lot behind there.
Hmm.
And so there is no sign. I can tell you right now, and once you turn the corner and you see the parking lot, there's no sign that says free parking or public parking. So they don't know. And I'm like, sure, you know, but they don't know that. So, because there's no clear, there might be a sign on 24, but there's not a sign that then says free parking.
Yep.
I just think it'd be better. I think the goal is, one of the goals that I'd like to see is try to get people to stop and get out of their cars and look around. When you get to, you've seen the view from Memorial Park, the top of it's gorgeous. And if we can get people out to get to the park or to even look around, I think they'd really appreciate it a lot more. Need to try to get them to stop.
Yeah, like you say, people are ticked off. They're angry that they're involved in that.
Saturdays and Sundays, I'll give you that.
In my business, I have less walk in traffic, the busier the highway is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just reality.
Thank you for the discussion. Anybody else have anything?
You want to talk about Park Street?
Yes, absolutely. For those of you that haven't met me yet, I'm Ben Schmidt. I'm the Public Works Director. And I really appreciate the discussion because this is actually already in the works for the stuff that you've been talking about. So the one-way direction on Park Street was actually something I designed in to the Lake Street project, but I had to obtain some right-of-way as part of that project. And I didn't want to stall the Lake Street project this year, but that is actually like shelf-ready design. I just need to obtain the easement to get that one-way system set up. So the ultimate plan would be to have Park Street be a one-way off Highway 24. And then you referenced Manitou. The reverse angle parking is statistically the safest and most efficient way to park vehicles. And so in that design is reverse angle parking, where you basically pull in and then you back in to the side. And so the lane off Highway 24 would head north off Park Street. And then there's the opportunity to expand quite a bit of parking using the existing roadway and right of way there to link Park Street from Lake all the way back down to 24 with that. So I think that fixes a lot of your problems, and all the signage for that one way would be included as part of that project out of the 410 fund because it's a project expense. But yes, that first half of Park Street is actually already in design, and then we'll have discussions for the second half by Righteous Grounds there to link the rest of that project for design in 2025.
Thanks for that information.
So Ben, does the one-way section of Park Street, is that intended to continue along the frontage of Memorial Park all the way up to High Street? Or?
It would be, because currently right now folks try to park next to the ditch, and that's not a good place to be parking. And then folks parallel park along Memorial Park. But with that reverse angle parking, we'll be able to effectively triple the amount of parking adjacent to Memorial Park for the big events that are happening there. And then, you know, families can open the minivan back door and pull all their stuff out, and then have a safe way to pull out.
Do you have an idea or a timeline of when this actually might happen?
So I need to obtain that right away. So the goal is to get that done this year. And then this would be a project slated for 2025.
Okay. Does your concept include piping that ditch?
Yes, it does.
Perfect. Oh, I was going to ask, it does. Yes. Nice. That was another concern that somebody brought up to me too, is that ditch. Oh,
yeah, it's tricky when we're trying to do all these streets projects to find that balance of fixing galvanized, fixing drainage, adding sidewalk, doing all the hardscaping, the roadway, because that gets really expensive really quick. But the goal is when we touch these big projects is just to do it once.
So you think all of it will be done, all of that, all the way up will be done in 2025?
That's the target, because we have 6 months left to get the second half of Park Street designed and get that right of way obtained. And then we would like to go to add in like January of 2025 for construction in 2025.
That's awesome. I like that. Thank you.
And if the DDA would like to be part of those design discussions, we can do a workshop if that would be helpful for you to kind of highlight some of the stuff during the planning phase. If that would be something you're interested in, I'd be happy to do that.
Just present.
Yeah, if we could, even if you could just present it to us so we could see it, that would be wonderful.
Certainly, because there's some off-street parking improvements that we can do to some like one-way improvements around Righteous Grounds that I think would make that operate more effectively as well. But just would like to get the business owners' feedback from downtown as well before we do all that.
Great, thank you.
You know, just comment, I really appreciate your offering to include the DDA. And I think that if we have more of a relationship with city makes us more functional, gives us opportunity to actually make a lot of difference, so I look forward to working with the city.
Me too. Thanks.
You brought up one thing about, does anybody else have anything on that topic? You brought up something I'd been thinking about, the micro grants. Since we already have the next meeting with something to talk about, but that is something that we need to talk about as well as a council. And then I don't know what that looks like, but in my head, it's like $3,000 to $5,000 grants possibly for people to spruce up their properties, paint, or do something to make the front of their buildings look nicer, or even the back. I've seen some backs of buildings that are pretty poor shape in the parking lots. But anyway, that being said, is that something that we'd like to discuss too as a board?
Yeah, for sure.
So maybe we won't put it on next month's agenda, but maybe the one after. I think it's something we need to, I think next month's agenda is going to be pretty full. So if you guys are open to that, then we'll put it on.
Yeah, the good news is there are a lot of examples out there, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can find the examples and assemble something that works for us in our community.
Okay.
If we want to do that.
Yeah, I'd like to entertain that. City attorney's report. Not today. Nothing today. Could we be done? Does anybody have anything else?
We do have a presentation on the medians for 24.
Okay.
Yeah, if that's all right. I'm going to share my screen and would like to provide an update for our median plans. So to give you a little backstory on this project, so back in 2023, city staff started doing all the survey and engineering design to try to improve the medians along Highway 24. And the big goals that we were trying to accomplish in this design was, one, to make it easier for city staff to maintain the medians, because right now there's a lot of gravel, there's a lot of weeds, there's a lot of loose stuff. And every time we have to do projects there, it takes a tremendous amount of traffic control coordination. And frankly, it's just dangerous to have city staff out there while cars are ripping by to try to take care of this stuff. And so in a really great collaboration with Keep Woodland Park Beautiful, what we had proposed was some median improvements to remove a lot of the rock and natural vegetation that was inside the medians and replace it with hardscape, and then provide as much flexibility in the future. And this is kind of a creative idea that we had thought through, but to place bases. So these are standard bases. They're basically a CDOT standard form to allow for flexibility to install art and fake trees in the medians.
Fake trees?
Fake trees. Hear me out. These aren't the type ones that you get at Bed Bath & Beyond. So these are these type of trees, they're a professionally made tree that made to look like the natural trees in the area. So we can get everything from palm trees to cactuses to evergreens. But the idea is that they don't require any water. They can be pre-lit for holiday events, and they can be interchangeable. And the most important part of this whole project was getting the CDOT approval, because anything that we do in the right of way, we needed CDOT approval for. And so rather than doing one application for a CDOT permit, what we have done, and actually received all the documents back from our consultant, all the comments back from Keep Woodland Park Beautiful, the end of last week, is to submit for an intergovernmental agreement with CDOT. And what this does is give this a flexibility in the future that anytime we want to change out the art, the city has the authority to do that. So we don't have to go back through the CDOT process again. So basically the idea would be is anytime somebody proposes putting art in the right of way, you're going to have a footprint and a size and a weight that you're allowed to build to. And we gave a lot of flexibility in that. And so for statues, for rotating art pieces, for these filler trees, whatever we want to do in that, all that would happen was they could propose it to Keep Woodland Park Beautiful. Keep Woodland Park Beautiful could review it and provide comment, and then city council would pass an ordinance updating the art in the right of way. And then we don't have to get CDOT approval again because everything fits within this box. And so it gives us a lot of flexibility in the future. It's not just my design, it's the community's design. It can grow and evolve to whatever the community wants it to be. So the target for this would be to get the intergovernmental agreement routed through CDOT, get their comments back, get this fully executed and run through city council in probably the next 2 months. And then what we can do is provide a kind of call for art for any other folks in the community that would like to potentially contribute to this project. And we can plan to have this hardscaping done and the bases installed in either late 2024 or 2025. But I think it would be kind of nicer to do it in 2025 when you have all the art pieces lined out and allocated and ready to go, so that when it goes in, the art just goes in on top of it. And it's a beautiful streetscape.
Are there height restrictions?
There would be, yes, because the loads, so basically any art that would go in there, there would be a height restriction on the load that the base can handle. And we would want to do these things called breakaway bases in there. You actually see them in a lot of light poles in case something hits them. It doesn't kill the person who hits the car,
right,
or who hits the piece of art.
And is there a height restriction on the trees? Or are they just going to be little 4-foot trees that are actually going to be a tree?
It's
like,
going to
look like a tree.
It's going to be a tree the same size that's kind of in there right now. So a lot of those trees along the center,
they're like maybe 8 foot tall, or.
Yeah, my target was to get 12 foot would be the height restriction there. So they could look like real trees.
And when you say they're pre-lit, are they pre-lit with different colors?
There's different options, yes. And it's all subject to the budget that we can do. And this isn't like your, it isn't like leaving your Christmas lights year round where they get all tangled and stuff. These are professionally pre-lit, brought through the base of the trees so they can change colors. So if you want to do St. Patrick's Day green, you can do St. Patrick's Day.
Who controls the colors?
The city can, or you can. I'm joking. Yeah.
No, I know they make them like, I think we have 2 million color options on the lights in our buildings, which I probably use 10. But I mean, I know that the technology is there to make them really creative. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, and so the idea would be is Keep Woodland Park Beautiful has had some excellent statues, and we actually included these in our presentation for CDOT for this intergovernmental agreement. But this is an example of some of the statues that they have, and I mean, they're very well done. Like,
we need some bears.
I think there may be a bear. Hold on, there's a fox. There's your bear.
Especially this time, there's a lot of bears around town. I like that. You guys have been working.
Trying to provide as much flexibility in the future, trying to give as much control back to the city to put what they want in there and make it the city's vision.
And Ben, you mentioned an ordinance to replace, or to every time we wanted to change out the art. Why would we need to do that?
CDOT wants an ordinance. Basically, CDOT's goal is to make sure that elected officials are the ones that choose the art going in.
Okay.
Because they had an incident in another part of the state where there wasn't an ordinance and there wasn't a tie, and it became politically sensitive. And so basically there's a trail of, hey, all of city council approved this. They wanted this in.
Okay.
So that's kind of the goal of what they're getting to.
Okay.
A what?
We'll have to look at the process of whether a resolution will suffice, or it has to be an ordinance every time.
We'll advocate for the
Resolution.
Yeah, sure.
Hey,
Yeah,
guys.
that would make more sense. Yeah.
I just have a question about the line of sight. I mean, as far as being able to see through, is it going to be, if those trees are full, like right now, when winter comes around, there's no leaves and your sight is improved. Is that a consideration? I mean, have you guys addressed that, or?
Yeah, so all of these footprints are factored into the line of sight when CDOT does their review. That's why we're trying to get standard bases with a 12 by 12, basically encumbrance in that line of sight. And CDOT would review that to make sure there's enough gap in between to be able to see that so you can effectively turn. That's all part of their review process.
Cool.
And so the idea would be that anything that goes on that base, we don't have to go through all the engineering and the line of sight questions again from that. And then just to kind of talk about the costs, so our engineer's opinion of probable cost just out of the 410 fund for the landscaping and the bases and the stamped concrete, like the removal of all that was around $150,000. And so anything additional from that, from the art piece, would have to come out of the general fund because they're two separate funds.
And the city's willing to incur that out of the general fund?
In this year's budget, we budgeted for 3 of them, but I believe there's room for 12 or 24.
There's room for probably 50 things to go in there right now.
But 24, I think, is the max we had identified as good locations.
Correct. Yeah. With bases enough to do filler to keep it
Great.
contiguous.
I think it. Yeah. Sounds good. Thank you. Anything else?
Yeah, I guess I would just say that consistent with what we're talking about with Bergstrom, you know, with the DDA being a quasi-governmental entity under the city, it's not, and because this is in the downtown corridor, it's not out of the realm of possibility for us to help participate in some of the funding as well, if the funds are there. So let's keep that in mind as well. We, in the spirit of cooperation and making the downtown better. So
I know this sounds corny, but they do it like in the old North End and places like that. Have we ever thought about having places where people could put flower gardens, like with flowers, if like an organization wanted to do that? Is that in anything that you've thought of? Of course, probably not in the middle of the road, but off to the sides in some spots. Have you guys thought of anything like that?
Yeah, we've talked about that a little bit with the adopted gardens and stuff. The bigger issue is making sure that everybody has the right waivers and the training and everything to be able to work in the CDOT right away, because there's a different level of PPE that's required and training and stuff. So we just want to formalize that program a little bit. But yes, that's something that we've talked about. And actually, Rob Feltz, the operations director, is looking into that right now in regards to the flower beds and adoption for next year.
And I've noticed there's a couple of like in the front of 110 Reserve and some other spots, you guys have some metal planters that are just bolted to the ground that we can't take up, but there's nothing in them. Has a city thought about at least addressing those with some flowers maybe, or is that on the owners of the businesses that are near there to take those over?
We'll have to look into that. I'm not 100% sure.
Because I've thought about getting my grinder out and just removing it, but I'm like, well, I didn't put it there, so thought you might get upset.
Thank you for not.
You're welcome.
Well, and I think the good thing is with this intergovernmental agreement, it gives the city a lot more latitude in addressing a lot of those aesthetic things, because technically we'd have to go through CDOT because we're doing work in the right of way to remove those things. So it's one of those things I would like to provide more latitude for the city to be able to control.
Okay, thank you. I don't mean to drag it on. I said a few things.
Well, on a personal note, I'd like to thank the city for getting out and putting some flowers out in the berm in front of our business. And it really does make a difference. And one, from the public's point of view, we appreciate it.
Thank you very much for taking that on. It sounds good. Being very impatient that I am, I'm not so sure 2025 sounds good to me, but okay, fine. That's pretty quick for Woodland Park, though. I'm surprised you didn't say 26 or 27, so I'm grateful.
Yeah, and once again, we can make it happen, but I want to be able to fill it rather than just leave it barren.
Sure.
So we can go out to ad and take care of the project, but.
And it's interesting because a few people that I've talked to, a few of the citizens, that was their concern, was the street that you're just talking about up there with the gully too, with the open ditch, especially during the farmer's market. It's a nightmare up there trying to get through. It's one way again. So yeah, all the way through the park there. So thank you for addressing that. Anybody else? I move that we adjourn. Can I get a second?
I don't think you need a second.
No second. Let's just go then. We're done. Thank you.
That's all it takes.